ESPN just dropped their NFL trade deadline preview article covering all 32 teams. And I thought you guys might be interested to see who they have going out the door and who they have coming in the door. So with that, let's start with what they believe the Falcons are going to do at the deadline, which is either buying, selling, or sitting still. Here's what Dan Graziano wrote. Sitting it out. The Falcons are primed for a run and would look to add, but remember, they already jumped the gun on the trade deadline right before the season with the signing of Justin Simmons and the trade for edge rusher Matthew Judon. I have been very outspoken on this channel about acquisition for an edge rusher, but I can see where Graziano is coming from of the Falcons have already made a handful of moves, and maybe they feel like we don't need to add more. We've already done that, and we need the guys that we added to go out and make some big plays for us. Plus, they only have 4 draft picks coming up. They have a first, they have a second. I forgot they lost their third to New England. They have a fourth. Their 5th-round pick is belonging to wherever the NFL sends 5th-round picks that they claim for alleged tampering. And then they do not have a 6th because of either the Van Jefferson trade or the Kentavious Street trade, but they have a 7th-rounder. So Terry Fontenot does not have a lot to work with, and I don't necessarily blame him too much for being like, I traded for an edge rusher. I need Judon and the rest of these guys to go out and play well, right? I signed Justin Simmons. I need the secondary to play better. So I can somewhat see where they're coming from, but also I'm not going to let the ownership cry poor. This is a team that is ready to win right now. You've got Kirk Cousins firing on all cylinders. Let's squeeze the last little football juice out of him and not wonder what if the Falcons gave up that 4th-round pick for a pass rusher. So if you want the Falcons to make a move, let's show Terry Fontenot right now by liking this video. I always go back to my head to that scene in the movie Draft Day where Sonny Weaver is like listening to sports radio as he drives to work. Like, I want to believe Terry is listening to some Falcons fans while he drives to Flowery Branch each day. So let's show the guy that this fan base right here wants Atlanta to make some type of move to reflect that they are adding to this roster that is ready to win right now and not staying still like a mid to poor level baseball franchise. Now, for someone that could be going out the door, ESPN selected for the Falcons safety Richie Grant. The former 2nd-round pick has been on the bench for pretty much all of the season after starting the last 2 years. Initially, there was a level of a plan in place that Richie Grant, Justin Simmons, and Jesse Bates would all have a big role on this defense, more so for Bates and Simmons than Grant, but we'd still see some Richie Grant on the field. That has not been the case whatsoever. The guy has played 19 defensive snaps. I remember he played a couple of snaps in the Eagles game, and now that I think about it, I don't know if I've really seen him ever since. Now, unfortunately, he has not really blossomed into the 2nd-round pick Atlanta was hoping he would become. I mean, when it was him and Jalen Hawkins, he was definitely the better of the 2 safeties. But then once Jesse Bates came over, it was very clear, oh no, Hawkins was just so bad that he made Richie Grant look good. But when Richie Grant lined up next to an actual pro safety like Bates, it was clear who the odd man out was. My view on trading Richie Grant is it's unlikely you get a very valuable draft pick, so might as well hold on to him to have some good depth at that position. If a team wants to give you a decent day 3 draft pick, okay, then yeah, let's talk ball. But if they just want to give you a bag of peanuts or a 2026 7th-round draft pick, at that point, I'd rather just hold on to Grant. But I can also see Atlanta going, we need to add more to our 2025 draft pick stock right now. So if someone were to offer the Falcons even a 6th-round draft pick in this upcoming draft for Grant, I'd probably take him up on that offer. I don't know any team that would call the Falcons and go, hey, that guy that played 19 snaps so far for you, we'll give you a 6th-round pick for him. Take it or leave it. Probably not getting that phone call. And also this serves as a good reminder. This does not apply to everyone, but it applies to far too many people. You can't simply just trade away all of your bad players because you want to trade them away. This is not a fancy football league. You can't just find the dumb guy in your league and convince him that this pile of garbage is actually good. So stop suggesting just trading away your least favorite players. You need another GM to go, I would like that bad player. That conversation never happens. So The Falcons safety room right now, if they were to move on from Bates and Simmons, if they would move on from Richie Grant, it would be very slim if something were to happen to Jesse Bates or Justin Simmons. So for that reason, I think Grant is probably safe unless someone is dumb enough to give the Falcons a really good offer. Now, we're going to talk about who ESPN thinks the Falcons could be acquiring at the NFL trade deadline in just a moment. But first, a quick shout out to our sponsor today, Prize Picks, which calls the Peach State home, by the way. Prize Picks, if you don't know, is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 10 million active members. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks. I'm talking turning $10 into $1,000. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup is not perfect. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download Prize Picks today to claim your $50 instant money after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Now, as for ESPN's trade target for the Falcons, they went with wide receiver Christian Kirk, which I was surprised for them not to pick, a pass rusher since they are dead last in sacks. But I'll explain first what their viewpoint was, and then I'll tell you why it was a really dumb viewpoint. But a little bit of background on Kirk, former second-round pick. He signed a pretty big 4-year, $72 million deal with the Jags, and he has been, I wouldn't say too underwhelming, but probably not worth what the Jags thought they were getting when they gave him that big of a contract. But overall, it's a hard no for me on trading for Christian Kirk. It doesn't solve your defensive issues, and that is the #1 issue on the 2024 Falcons. But beyond that, you don't really need a wide receiver that badly to part ways with one of your 4 draft picks. So reason #1, I am not on board with trading for Christian Kirk. He's got a decent contract ahead of him here. I mean, he has $15 million left in base salary, or $15 million of base salary this year. So you'd be taking out about half of that. And then he still has another year on his contract with around $15 million on that as well. So you're looking at acquiring, depending on when this trade were to go through, somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million. But that's not only my reasons. Reason #2. He's too expensive in terms of his contract and likely what the Jags would want for him for not a massive upgrade from what you currently have in Ray McCloud. So here's what Seth Walder from ESPN wrote. Kirk, who is boasting a 65 open score via ESPN's receiver scores, would be an upgrade over Ray McCloud in the slot for the Falcons. They would suddenly have a pretty impressive set of playmakers. Is he that big of an upgrade? I'm not saying that McCloud is better, but I don't know if Christian Kirk is so much better that he is worth the rest of his contract for this year and next year and losing one of your 4 draft picks for this season for a guy that has, 50 more yards and 1 less reception. So sure, I'm not going to argue that Christian Kirk is worse than Ray McCloud, or Ray McCloud is vastly better. But when you factor in what you're paying Ray McCloud versus what you would be paying Christian Kirk and the draft pick on top of that to get him, I would need to see a massive upgrade. I'm not seeing a massive upgrade. I'm seeing a marginal upgrade. And then reason #3, you're just too slim when it comes to draft capital to target these mid-wide receivers. A few weeks ago, we talked about maybe the Falcons going after one of the star receivers that could get traded at the NFL trade deadline, but I just don't think Christian Kirk is nearly close enough to some of those star guys like a Cooper Kupp, for example, or like a DeAndre Hopkins who just got dealt or something like that, for it to make sense for the Falcons to move on from one of their few picks. I mean, Kirk has 1 season in his entire NFL career with over 1,000 yards. And the last 2 years in Jacksonville, including this year, he missed some time at the end of last season, but still, Christian Kirk to me has always been a solid receiver. nothing more, nothing less. And I don't think the Falcons need to give up a pick for a solid receiver. They have 3 really good receivers. Like Darnell Mooney and Drake London are 2 top number 1 receivers. Ray McCloud has proven he can make some big plays for you over the middle of the field on 3rd down. So I just don't think that the Falcons' priorities line up with adding a guy like Christian Kirk. So Seth also added this to his write-up. Defense might look like the logical spot for Atlanta to upgrade, but if you're going on a deep run with Kirk Cousins, and presumably that was the point of bringing him in, you're going to need to surround his side of the ball with talent too. Surround his side of the ball with talent too. What? Seth, have you watched a single Falcons game this year? Do you not think there's enough talent on the offensive side of the football? Do you not think Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, those guys aren't talented enough? That's the issue? That's the squeaky wheel here? We need to get more talent around Kirk Cousins? There's plenty of talent around Kirk Cousins. You know what you need? Someone to get after the quarterback, because you have 5-6 sacks and you're halfway through the season and you are 32nd in sacks, 32nd in pressure percentage. Not enough talent around Kirk? Listen, a few weeks ago when we talked about maybe adding a receiver, it was to the tune of, listen, clearly this Falcons defense is not going to hold their weight enough, so you got to go out and get a superstar receiver if you feel like the only way for you to win games is by scoring 35 points. Christian Kirk is not going to be the guy that comes in here and makes Atlanta 10 times better than what it is right now. Christian Kirk is just going to cost you a decent chunk of your salary cap space, less that you can roll over to next year, and one of your 4 draft picks. And Christian Kirk is not worth those 2 things. Are there other receivers that could be worth those 2 things? Yeah, you could twist my arm on some of those guys. But Christian Kirk, sorry, Christian, if you're watching, is not at that level where it makes sense for the Falcons to make that big of an investment for a wide receiver 3. He's not better than London, and he's not better than Darnell Mooney. So, give Kirk Cousins more talent? There's plenty of talent around him. How about you give Kirk Cousins a defense that can protect a 24 to 28 point performance by the offense? All right, that's going to do it for us on today's episode. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you enjoyed our show, make sure to subscribe as well. I'm trying to get us to 29,000 subscribers. We're a little under 150 away, so if you're already subscribed, for starters, let me know when you subscribed. It's super cool to see how long people have joined the channel. But also send it to a friend or a family member that's not subscribed. Help them get us to 29K. And lastly, I want to give some shout-outs to the Dirty Birds Club. Jose Santana, Ken Ballard, Trey1222, Jason Lindino, Reese Atkins, Archangel, Angry Liquid, Jeebus H. Christ, Dictator JC, JT, Jordan C. Johnza, Ronan Tyrell, and Lord Buddy Bear. Thank you guys so much for being some of the biggest supporters of the channel. All right, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and I'll catch up with you all later.